President Bola Tinubu in December 2023 approved a 50% transportation cost reduction for land travelers during the Christmas and New Year period in order to ease the strain on the pockets of Nigerians. The initiative took effect from Thursday, December 21 and ended on January 4, 2024. The policy, which was directed at the poor, was only for road transport fares and free train rides, as air travelers were excluded. Joining us on the show this morning to discuss how the coordination of this initiative by the federal government was executed and if it achieved its goal is Engineer Biodun Otunola, MD, CEO, Planet Project Limited, operator of Oshodi Transport Interchangeable. Good morning and welcome to the morning show. Good morning. All right, excellent. So I'll start from the last line of what I just mentioned in terms of a review of this largesse or generosity of the president to alleviate the sufferings of the people over the Christmas period, Christmas New Year period, by instituting a 50% reduction in transportation costs, rail and bus services. As an operator yourself, can you give us a review? How well did this work? How many people benefited, at least from your station, and how were you able to track it?
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I think we have to place this in perspective from the fuel subsidy removal. You know, if you observe what has happened, the problem with the fuel subsidy is essentially a transport issue. The pain point is transportation. So you suddenly have a situation where transport costs jump up by as high as 50%. You know, prior to this time, people were spending up to 40–50% of their income on transportation. So with the fuel subsidy removal, the transport costs jump up. So people will then have to contend with about 70%. So I think the government deserves a lot of credit, you know, by the fact that looking at this pain point, suddenly coming around and say, okay, what can we do to solve this problem during the Yuletide season? And then they brought this policy on board. So from our side in Oshodi, it turned out that we have over 40%, 35 to 40% increase in number of passengers that turn up during this period. We've been on charge of that terminal for over 5 years, and as we've never seen this kind of surge before. It was the first time. So people responded positively. People were happy with it. You know, all of a sudden, somebody traveling to Onitsha who normally should pay 22,000 have to pay 11,000, and then we have to do actual refund of cash. So it's something they've never seen before. They thought, well, how is this happening when we are not in an election period? So it's something that I think was well received. We've seen this surge in the number of passengers and the fact that it was actually cash-based. So we made
Let me ask you a specific question. And thank you for it, because since you're an operator, can you give us the number of people who would usually ply your route during the Yuletide season? How many people did, you know, benefiting from this last, 50% reduction? So usually the numbers, then the numbers in the last cycle, and how many people benefit from the 50% reduction? Okay, from Oshodi Terminal, as at the last time we tracked, there are over 6,000 people that benefited within the 14-day period. Okay, before now, we would normally have something like about 3,500 to 4,000. Okay, that's the kind of number we used to have. And then in terms of transport costs, for the longest route, if you are traveling to the east, which is the longest route that you have, so people would normally have to pay 22,000. So because of the 50% reduction, they were getting 11,000 naira. We also had other routes like Ilorin and then also Akure as well, where people were paying 6,000 naira and then we have to refund 3,000 naira to them. And it was physical, everybody could see it. It's something that people can track and they get their money live. And we have a video recording of everything that happened, including the manifest of all the passengers. All right.
So how many passengers did you make those 3K refunds to? Number one. How many of those passengers did you make those 3,000 refunds to? You said over 6,000 people.
Passengers, yes.
Passengers traveled that period.
Yes.
Did the 6,000 people benefit from the scheme?
Absolutely. And we have all the records, yes. It varies from Akure and Ilorin. So those ones were getting a refund of 3,000 naira. And if you're going to Akure, in terms of 8,500, you get a refund of 4,250.
Why did they need to get a refund if the subsidy had been effected and you just pay the half price already? Why did they need to get a refund? Okay, because of the process we put in place so that it's transparent. So what we did, that you pay your full fare at the point where you buy your ticket. So when you board, and once you finish boarding, and then they reel out the manifest. So with the manifest, the drivers refund your money to you, and then government in turn refund the balance to the passenger, to the drivers at the end of the day. So that's why, I mean, if you have it,
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the half price. Why don't you just pay the half price at ticket point? Why do they need to refund your money to you? And how are you sure that most of the drivers refunded all of the money to them?
No, everything is tracked. We have all the video recordings.
No, I'm not talking about video. I said,
Yes.
why is it that the driver have to refund and repay the money to them? You can do a couple of videos. Are you telling me you have the video for the 6,000 people
We
refunded?
do have the videos for
6,000 videos.
All of them. We have
6,000 videos.
We do have everybody on video, yes. Including passengers, you see
so
them.
every time the driver refunds for 6,000 passengers.
We do have that. Let me also share with you why we adopted that method. Oh yeah, sure.
Well, on what portal will you make them public? And can you?
Well, if you give me, I can make them
all
possible.
the manifest?
We have all the manifest. We have all of that.
Okay.
Okay. Everything is fully documented.
But you just had to, let the driver be refunding money. And this is the same government that is talking about cashless economy, and you say you are giving 3,000. So how much is the driver refunding per bus?
No, it depends on the capacity of the bus.
How much is the capacity of the bus?
It's because of this kind of cynicism.
How many buses?
Yeah.
How many 18-seater buses left your park?
I don't have the exact size of the number of 18-seater. No. No, there are Sienna buses. Some are 5 passengers.
So how many Sienna left?
We have all of that data, okay?
How many left?
I cannot have the exact figure of all of that disaggregated, but I've given you the figures over 6,000.
You have 6,000 videos.
Yes, but we have all the data. We can supply them.
Okay.
We can supply them.
The names of all of these people.
We have all of that. Yes, if you want to see it, it's not very viable.
Because you see. So
no, I can.
You get my point about transparency.
I get your point.
So for me,
yes,
where you get to start returning money to people becomes suspect. So it's as good as nothing on it, because for the love of mercy, you might even put fake passengers in the bus and get driver to return, and you just take a video. So video is not a correct representation. So why don't they pay at the service point? And that's all that matters. Again, and what transport company is this at the Oshodi terminal?
Well, there's so many of the operators. Okay.
So were they part of the 5 that the federal government highlighted?
No, we manage the terminal. Okay.
And so were they part of the 5 that the federal government highlighted?
Yes, some of them are part of them. And then
which ones? Which were the transport companies that were involved in your Oshodi terminal? Which one left?
Okay, we have NURTW. Okay, NURTW manages Ilorin and Akure. Yeah. Then we have a number of what we call PTONA, Public Transport Association of Nigeria. So these are also part of the operators. You see, let me speak to what you said earlier. It's to avoid things like this. That's why we insisted that people should get the refund. If you monitor this report all over the country, the story is that we never got any money. There was no, this scheme is not real. So that's why we designed it to look like INEC kind of process, where you come in, okay, you go to the counter, you pay 100%. And then at the point where you board, all the passengers see it.
No, so for me, that's the problem. The fact that you have to make them, because see, if you effect a subsidy discount,
yes,
at the point of payment, it should be effected. So you saying you have videos of 6,000 people giving 3,000. I can come, enter a bus. This is the reason for video. Enter a bus, tell the driver to give me 3,000 back, take a video of it, and iterate those videos with about 5-10 people. I can do it.
No, as I said,
so it looks funny to me.
No, you see, again, you are looking for the suspicion in the process. I'm telling you, this is what makes you more credible.
That's my job as a journalist.
Yes, exactly. But that's what makes it more credible.
I'm going to look for the suspicion. I'm going to look for the lies.
As I said, this is what makes it even more credible, because it's open and everybody can see it. Okay, all the passengers are there, everybody in the bus, and then you have the manifest of all the passengers, and then you read the numbers to them to say, look, these are 5 passengers, these are the names, and then everybody get their money back.
I'm sure you'd agree that you can also identify where there may be loopholes. I'm not saying that there were loopholes. There might have been, but I'm sure you can see where there can be loopholes and opportunities for corruption. I'm just saying the opportunity. But let me come to you. When you mentioned using the INEC process, I said, I hope you did not have technical glitches. I'm not sure that was a great one. If you say that, because I mean, even in that process, people have questioned that process. But let me come to, let me dial back. So when the government introduced this initiative, at what point were operators invited? What was the process and procedure set to be like, and what was the reporting template for impact assessment like? Because it's important. A number of people, one of the criticisms of these schemes, which a lot of people praised. We also praised it. We thought it was fantastic to see that the federal government was looking to alleviate the poverty, the sufferings of the people by helping them with some form of, this one is transportation subsidy.
Absolutely.
But also, we must scrutinize it.
Absolutely.
Because we want to scrutinize it so that when schemes are introduced, there's a robust risk assessment, analysis, and even review, so that next time, if such a scheme exists, those loopholes will be plugged. And that's why we're asking this question.
Yeah, sure.
So I want to ask, so at what point were you consulted? What was the agreement between the federal government and operators in terms of how you would recoup? I'm sure you're not in business for charity. You're there to make profit. Okay. So somehow, I don't know if the government decided we're going to pay you back. What was the procedure and outlined? And then what is the way to check impact assessment? And this thing Rufa is talking about as to how to check that the monies actually went to the people of Nigeria who needed, transportation subsidy. Okay,
well, the way I look at it is this. It was, done at the level of the federal government, okay? They spoke directly with the operators in Abuja, and then they picked some of the major transport operators that we all know to be part of this scheme. Part of what you also need to know is that all the major security operatives in Nigeria were involved in this, including DSS, EFCC. They monitor, even in my office yesterday, DSS came in there to share some of the things they saw in the process. Okay, so it's not something that is just left to us alone. Government on its own planted security services all over all of these locations.
So just tell us the procedure and processes. Just check. So they invited operators to Abuja.
Yes.
Like the week of or the day before, because it was an immediate.
No. There were consultations going on for a very long time. And then, of course, the process of, I wasn't part of that process in Abuja, okay? So, but they invited operators from what I've been told, and then there was a press release by the other minister as well on how the process was conducted.
So how has impact been measured? Is it just by this picture? I can see on the screen now, distribution of money to people who went on this, and a picture is taken, and I think they even had to say some things
they did
to the camera.
Everybody. Yes.
All right?
Yeah.
So how was this?
So
this was the only thing?
We have all of this.
For 6,000 people.
So who do you submit? Who do you submit this to? How do you verify?
There's a report that is being put together.
Okay.
We have all the manifests of all the passengers. Okay. Right. And then all of that is being collated. How many passengers to carry on a day-by-day basis? The destinations, where they're going, how much they paid, how much subsidy was paid to them. All of this report is being put together, and then will be forwarded to the government at the end of the exercise.
What was the means of identification of these passengers?
Now, if you bought buses in public transport environment like this, so everybody come in with their name, and they write their name, and they pay. That's why I was telling you
earlier. What was the means of identification of these passengers?
They don't have to have a means of identification.
Why?
No, it's not the requisite for you.
For scrutiny's sake, because you're putting it in the manifest. What was the means of identification? So because you know what? Because if you are putting a photo up, and you are putting a banner, you're saying they are talking and everything, how do we identify who is who?
As I said before, you must understand the current system of operation before you can design this kind of subsidy. Okay, what's the current system of? If you want to board in any motor park or terminal in Nigeria today, you don't have to have a requisite means of identification. It's not a requirement. Unlike airline, which is compulsory for you to have.
Unlike trains.
Yes, unlike trains as well. So you just walk in there and say, okay, my name is Mark Chuku, I'm going to Owerri, okay? And then you register your name on the manifest. So when you do that, when the bus is fully loaded, everybody pay the full fare, and then they get their money back.
So for me, I'm just curious about this method of taking pictures and all of that. Because, you know what I said, I'm curious.
Yeah, sure.
Just like how a lot of some people took pictures of the rail service, we saw the investigative report that came out from the cable as regards how some people have bought those tickets and they did round trip it, So that's why I'm just saying. I mean, you can get anybody. Video evidence is not enough. You can get anybody to say that they did this. Secondly, I would like to also ask.
Yes.
Were these transport companies based on the 5 transport companies they highlighted? Because I'm seeing Moscow Transport or something.
That's why those are members of Pituna. Okay, they were added to the scheme. And then also when
were they added to the scheme?
Sorry?
When were they added to the scheme?
No, the federal government announced it. The federal government added them on the second day of the scheme.
Okay,
because some routes, some routes
were not covered.
Yes. For instance, Ilorin and then Akure was also not there at the initial stage.
Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. You said money was disbursed by the federal government to pay back the drivers.
Yes, please.
Who made the disbursement?
To the federal government or to this
operators? From the federal government back to the drivers. Who made the disbursement?
Now, it's in 2 parts, okay? Yeah. For the Albon, they were paid directly. Okay, federal government pay them directly, and then they are going to then submit their manifest to validate that.
Okay.
Now, for the one
do
we
you
manage,
any chance know how much the federal government paid them
I don't know.
for your pack?
I don't know.
Okay, good.
All right.
So for the second one?
Yeah, for the second one, we paid them directly. Okay,
So
and they were reconciling.
money?
Yes, and
How
they were
much
going to
did they
reconcile. No, we haven't gotten the money yet, but we're going to reconcile with them.
So how much from your pack in this scheme are you going to reconcile?
No, we're reconciling on the accounts. At the end of the day, when we're done with we're compiling the report.
So where did you get the money from to pay back the drivers for the rebating?
No, it's from our own income as well.
For your own income?
Yes.
So you were just taking money and spending?
Then we're going to then reconcile with federal government and get the money.
All right, okay.
We'd like to know that number.
All right, let's get more details on the scheme. So the scheme was meant to end today, 4th of... yesterday, sorry, 4th of January. Yeah. But the president extended it.
The rail,
yeah. Yeah, for the rail, but the bus service has ended.
Yes.
All right, so I asked earlier on, and I don't think you've given us a robust response as to the impact of this. I hear you say 6,000 people, at least from your terminal alone.
Sure.
I don't know if you've had conversations with other bus operators around. I'm sure you must have an association in terms of to what extent were there any challenges recorded. And the benefit of this is, like I mentioned, is that we must, as this is the first of its kind, like you mentioned, we must assess the success, the errors for improvement, so that in the event that a scheme like this happens, then we are able to implement your recommendations or learnings from this initial one. So what were some of the challenges that you encountered, in the process? And then what can the government do to support or perhaps operators in this instance? And then the second angle to that question is, I'm glad you talked about the fact that when it comes to the fuel subsidy removal, the biggest challenge, of course, is transport and transport costs. Yeah. And this doesn't end after the Yuletide season. No. Of course, there's a massive surge on Yuletide season. So how do you, long term, how can the government help to support commuters in order to at least cushion the effect of the removal of fuel subsidy from your perspective as an operator?
Okay, well...
So the first question is first on the impact and challenges faced, yes, and what can be done to improve the scheme in the future. Perhaps one of this is the money, the way that money is reimbursed, maybe at the point of purchase. Just deduct. So if you're meant to pay 6,000 naira, just pay 3,000 naira. So there's no exchange of cash. It minimizes incidents of corruption. Sure. Then the other part of the other challenges, and then long term, what can the government do to support Nigerians, your commuters, in terms of transportation costs? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, to answer the first one, you see, the issue is, first of all, we didn't have enough time to plan this scheme. Let's agree. Yeah. But then you can't take away the fact that federal government meant well. For me, it's two ends of this scheme. The first one is that for the first time we have a government who is courageous enough to say, let's take subsidy away, fuel subsidy. And then the same government is also courageous enough to say, look, let's help our people and introduce subsidy, transport subsidy, even if it's just for this 14-day period. It's something that should be commended. Yeah. However, there are a lot of issues with any human system, especially in a country like Nigeria where we don't have adequate transport infrastructure. How many bus terminals do you have in Nigeria, for instance? It's very limited. Okay, even the road network. Number of operators. It's not as organized and as formalized as you wish it could be, unlike the airline industry that has been around over the years and is well formalized and well organized. So part of the challenge we face, of course, apart from lack of awareness, a lot of people are not aware of the scheme, okay? And the second point is the fact that there's too many locations, For instance, we monitor 21 locations in Lagos, okay? Part of the issue also is that a lot of people are not even aware. And then when you get to some of the terminals, some of the operators are telling you, okay, we have loaded 2 buses in the morning, and that's all we can do for today. So some of these are part of the issues that we have. So communication is a major problem. We believe going forward, one of the things that should be done is to centralize this operation. So federal government also have, they have 30 routes, which for me is quite huge. Nigeria is a very vast country. Yeah. So going forward, one of the things we should do is concentrate maybe on Abuja and Lagos alone. So to all the state capitals, okay? So if you start from Lagos and say, look, Nigerians, I'm taking you to all the state capitals from Lagos and then Abuja. Abuja and Lagos are 2 centers that is federal in terms of Nigeria. Then let the state government take it off from there. So in Lagos, for instance, you can use Oshodi. Oshodi can take all of these passengers, and then we can dispatch everybody. And all of the monitoring that we're talking about can be done at that point. So you don't have to monitor in 21 locations, which we're doing at the moment currently. In Abuja, the same thing. I have a central place in Abuja. Every operator brings your buses there, the monies, disbursed, whether it's cashless or whatever process. All of that can be done at that point. I think that's part of the recommendation we will bring on board. In terms of what government needs to do going forward, you see, again, we have argued over the years that the solution to fuel subsidy is subsidized transportation. all over the world, public transport is a social service and it's heavily subsidized. If you travel to UK, every ticket you buy, whether train or bus, you have subsidy on it. 70%. In some countries, 60%. It varies between 40 to 70% all over the world. So Nigeria is perhaps the only country where we don't have such a system. And that's why this scheme is commendable. And we cannot say that it should be done on the basis of anytime we have festivities, end of the year alone. We should look for a means by which we should introduce transport subsidy in our cities all over the country. Guess what? The state government are earning a lot of money now. Last month, they shared almost 1.7 trillion. This money comes from a first subsidy. Okay? So some of this money can go back. Even 10% of that money should go back into subsidizing transportation. Today, within cities, people are spending 70% of their income on transportation. It's something that is very huge, and it affects everything. So we believe, going forward, government can do this. And of course, federal government is already addressing that through this presidential intervention on CNG. There's a plan to bring CNG buses within our cities, and we believe that when this is done, the pressmen should also have higway on it, especially the pricing. It's not enough buying the buses, but the issue there is at what price? Are we going to be able to charge prices compared to people's income? Or we're going to bring new buses, at the end of the day, the prices, again, we still make sure that they're spending 70% of their income on transportation.
All right.
Okay, so let's talk about that cost. I'd like to get more on that cost component. So at first, you said that the 3,000 people you gave rebates, if you compare them, they're close to like 6,000 people, right?
Yes.
So I want to know, because when I did my maths, 3,000 times 6,000, I mean, that's going well into about 18, 20 million?
No. The figure varies.
Okay.
So you have people going to the east, going to Owerri, going to Aba. Just some of them is about 22,000. So they get 11,000. Some people get 12,000 naira.
Okay.
So, and as I mentioned to you earlier, part of the reason why we have to do this in the open is so that people can see it and nobody can accuse anybody of hiding money. Oh, I didn't get my money, I didn't get my rebates. Because every passenger that is already in the bus, that the name is on the manifest, is qualified to get this money back.
Okay.
And it was done in the open. Everybody saw the process. Okay. Because if you do it otherwise, people will turn around and say, oh no, somebody collected. Look, just like what happened with the train. Okay. Somebody can come behind and say, oh, they've collected money from me behind this. But this is not the case. You must have been a passenger registered on the manifest before you're qualified to get your 50% refund.
After they had boarded the case.
Yes, they come down. And then they were being given the money.
They were handed their money.
Yes.
And the other part that is that I lack clarity on is the fact that federal government said you guys should go and spend your money. So the money spent now, who you provided it to the car operators, right, from the park?
Yes.
So the question is, and you said, was there an estimate or targeted amount by the federal government that they were going to give for your park alone for this scheme? Or they just said you should be doing it, any number you prorate and you bring back to them? Was there supposed to be a target of how many people that will leave your park in the first place?
Now, before now, we know we had an estimate because we've been running this, we have data.
So, okay, like what's the estimate? Like
No, I don't have the exact figure now, but before then we submitted the data of the passenger that we used to carry. So that basis I felt that this figure is reasonable enough, and then let's go ahead. So, and we said, okay, worst case scenario, we're expecting about 50% max. We don't expect the 100% because there are other parks that are also doing the same thing, 21 locations in Lagos. Okay,
so you don't, what was the projected passenger you said you were going to carry that you submitted to the federal government at first?
No, I'm saying we had our own initial based on our historical data.
How much is
No, it's about 5,000, 6,000 passengers as well, because we had it.
5,000, 6,000 passengers?
Yes. That's what we said the peak,
so how much was the initial cost you said to the federal government that will cost for 5,000, 6,000 passengers?
We did not submit the exact cost to them. What I'm saying to you is based on number of passengers. Yes. There wasn't any projected.
There was no projected cost in it.
No projected cost.
Okay.
All right. I have a comment here, just very quickly before we go. Someone sent in a message that that he feels like someone is lying because the 50% transportation fare cut was not transparent. Till today, the person is yet to get their 50% refund, and he mentioned the name of the motor from Lagos to Port Harcourt on the 29th of December. He said they were asked to write down their account details, that they will get credit alert on their way. And this is the challenge we mentioned. About
and that's exactly what I said to you, that ours was cash-based. I told you, that was why everything we did was cash-based.
So in terms of identifying challenges, I'm not sure you mentioned the fact that some people haven't remitted. So it means that there's a possibility that some operators will collect money from the federal government and not make a refund to passengers.
That's why I said to you, well, everything we did in Oshodi was all cash-based, 100%. So we avoid this kind of problem. So it's
now, I'm saying generally now, beyond Oshodi,
yes.
we're talking about we're evaluating the entire scheme across the different route, points. So that's what I'm saying, that these are some of the challenges that the federal government ought to be aware of. Yeah. And there ought to be some form of monitoring system to ensure that operators pay back, at least for this scheme, but in subsequent schemes, let there be no exchange of money.
Ayo, this
just
brings
at the point of
to this. No. Who audited your transactions?
No. Everything we have.
No, I'm asking you. Who audited?
We are going to submit all the reports, and it's going to be audited. Yes.
Who is the independent body that audited all of these your transactions?
I repeat again. We are submitting a report.
No, you
and then,
give me a name. No. Is it KPMG or something? Who audited all of these your transactions?
Again, I repeat. We designed the process. Federal government believed in it, and then they said go ahead, and that's what it is. So you cannot audit the process that is not even started. And then secondly, you see, because some of these questions you ask them. Let us give credit to people who are putting all the effort to make this happen.
And we do.
Okay? And you are a Nigerian, I'm a Nigerian. I appreciate the fact that you're interested in the process. But at the same time, you look at it this way. We have set up a process. It is working. People benefited from it. And exact issue I was avoiding the other times was somebody raised now. That's why we make the Oshodi one cash.
Right.
You can't follow that process because everybody get the money at the point where they travel.
Is it going to go through independent audit?
Of course. When you submit the report, it's going to be audited. Okay.
All right, just very quickly, for the sake of people who are in that situation, is there a portal to report erring operators? Did the federal government provide a place that if you didn't get your refund, you can go there to say that you didn't get your refund and provide evidence of travel? Is there any portal like that?
No, I'm not aware. But I believe people can reach out to the Federal Ministry of Transportation because all of this has been done. And then also the Honorable Minister of
That's a long one.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much, Engineer
Biodun.
But
in closing, I think we should commend federal government for this initiative.
No,
yeah, exactly.
Commendation.
And then secondly, don't forget, it was something that was planned like a pilot.
Yes.
So, and in every pilot system, you are definitely bound to have a lot of issues, especially when you are dealing with money and human being. Okay,
and there was not enough room for planning.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's accept that. But most important thing is the fact that you cannot take the fact away from the fact that over 170,000 people actually use this process during this period, according to the data we have. Yeah. And
you have over 170,000. We have over 167,000.
No, as at 10 days, as at 10 days,
released.
As at 10 days.
Yeah.
The story you're talking about is at 10 days. By the time we finish on January 4, it's over 170,000.
All right, we need
and I
to
think
go.
These people are,
Thank you so much.
Are Nigerians. And
thank you, Engineer Biodun Otunola. Like you mentioned, it's a pilot scheme. Yes. And that's the reason we're having this conversation, so that in the event that this scheme is replicated or done again, it will be flawless.
Thank you very much.